pregnancy heartburn is keeping you up at night and just all around making your life a little bit more difficult, trust me, you're not alone. You're in good company. And today we're going to be talking about why this is happening. And I'm also going to be sharing some tips that work for me, as well as tips that I share with my clients to help them sleep better and just overall feel more comfortable in their bodies, whether they're pregnant or not, but especially during pregnancy. I am Mel Soto. I'm a certified sleep and wellness coach. I also specialize in digestive health, which is nice because even though heartburn wasn't necessarily my issue before pregnancy, it's definitely something that I'm battling with now. So let's get into it. Let's talk about what's going on in the body, why this is happening, and what we can do about it. Okay, so why are we experiencing heartburn in the first place? Well, one of the things that's happening during pregnancy is our hormones are in flux. And because progesterone is increasing, it is relaxing our esophageal, I always mess that word up. It's messing with our esophageal sphincter. That is a hard thing to say, by the way, esophageal sphincter. Anyway, and when this is relaxed, it's a lot easier for things that should stay in our stomach to come back up and cause some unpleasantries. So what else is going on is our uterus is growing because we're growing humans. There's this little being that is expanding as our bodies expand. And so that's putting more pressure in certain areas. So as we grow, as our babies grow, there's less room for things. That's just, point in case. There's just less room for us to put food in our bodies and have it stay where we'd like it to stay. And then if we're laying down more, because we hopefully are doing that in pregnancy, we're definitely tempted to because fatigue is a real thing. Laying down, that position of being more reclined puts pressure on the esophagus and creates more potential for reflux. I know. It just doesn't seem fair. And the nighttime heartburn is happening more often because we're laying down, we're going to bed soon-ish after we eat what is likely our biggest meal of the day. So we're going to be talking about all that and some small changes that we can make to our overall routine so that life is a little bit more pleasant, heartburn goes down, sleep is better. Okay, so the first thing that I want to address is the timing of our meals. We want to have our last meal, dinner, and when I say meal, I mean meal, not a snack, but an actual meal. We want that last meal to happen 2.5 to 3 hours before bed to allow for proper digestion. If you do need a snack before bed, because oftentimes we do, have something small and nourishing. Be mindful of what it is, and we'll get into triggers in just a moment. But that's okay as long as it's small, satiating, and gentle on the stomach. Timing is important, but also the avoidance of overeating during that last meal. So being really mindful of your overall hunger and fullness cues. As I'm sure you know, with this growing being inside of your body, there's less room, meaning you're probably not able to eat as large of portions as you're able to as you go throughout your pregnancy. Okay, so the next tip that I want to cover is what we're eating and how much that matters. Because whether you had reflux or heartburn before pregnancy or whether you're just experiencing it now, you've probably noticed that certain foods can trigger more unsavory symptoms. So what we want to try to avoid are spicy foods, overly fatty foods, fried foods, citrusy foods, and then foods that are known for causing heartburn or acid reflux, such as garlic, onions, and like I said, citrus, tomatoes, things like that. It's also important to pay attention to personal triggers. Some people find chocolate can trigger their symptoms or even mint, and other people may not have issues with those things. Soda waters are a big one. So be mindful of what is triggering for you and do your best to either have that earlier on in the day in smaller portions or not at all. Put a pause on it. And then it might be helpful to focus on more bland, easy to digest options, such as rices and grains, sweet potatoes, bananas, oatmeal, yogurts in the evening, and then pairing any of those things with a nice lean protein, chewing really well to help for optimal digestion. Okay, now we're going to talk about sleeping position. As I'm sure most of you know, Pregnant women are often instructed to not sleep on their backs, just for optimal health of the baby. But also, it helps with their digestion as well. Now, the left side is said to be better overall for baby and for digestion. I'm a side sleeper. I sleep on both sides. And at this stage in my pregnancy, I'm pretty pregnant at this point. Sleeping on one side is not an option for me because I am waking up every couple of hours to reposition myself because that one side that I sleep on will start to ache. And that's been just fine. However, we do want to be sleeping on our sides. That is better for digestion. It's better for avoidance of acid reflux and the overall positioning of our baby. If you do find that you need to elevate the top half of your body a little bit more because that can be helpful for reflux, we want to use a wedge pillow or even elevate the head of the bed rather than cramming a bunch of pillows behind us, because pillows aren't hard enough. Wedge pillows are good for that, but regular pillows are not dense or hard enough to stop our bodies from hunching over, which actually puts more pressure on our esophagus and can make things worse. All right, let's talk hydration, because hydration is very important in pregnancy, but the timing of our drinks may be very important as well, depending on if this is a trigger for you or not. So if you're someone who's having a lot of reflux after meals and you're also guzzling beverages throughout your meals, I would encourage you to have a 10-minute buffer. So what I mean by that is before your meal, stop drinking anything 10 minutes before you enjoy your food, and then wait another 10 minutes before enjoying food. And I would also discourage chugging anything, just because all of that water fills up in your system. And again, because we're short on space, it makes it a lot more likely that it's going to come back up. And this is a tip that I often share with people, regardless if they're pregnant or not. And they're always amazed at the results because they never thought that drinking water with meals could activate more reflux. So I often encourage small sips of water throughout the day, especially around meal times, and just being mindful of how your water consumption is making you feel. And if you are having anything that's a bit more citrusy or carbonated and you're noticing that that's aggravating your heartburn or causing symptoms, that's something to keep in mind too, and either decrease or just put a pause on during this special phase of life. Since we've talked a lot about what we can take away, what you may want to add, what may be helpful is adding something like a ginger tea or a chamomile, which can be soothing for reflux, but that's always a good thing to discuss with your doctor, especially if you find that those things are not great for you, or if you've had any sort of adverse reactions to anything like ginger or chamomile before. Of course, talk to your provider and have them weigh in on the situation. Okay, and then last thing to mention are just some quick lifestyle tips that may help. Wearing more loose fitting clothing around the abdomen if you're not already. I don't know what you're doing. Although it is like really nice to show off the bump sometimes. I have loved that part of pregnancy. But if you have more stuff, more clothing that is pushing in on your stomach, that can not only feel a little bit claustrophobic, but it can lead to more symptoms. So try wearing some loose fitting clothing, get in the t-shirt, wear nothing at all, which I typically don't enjoy doing, but I've liked doing that now. I'm pregnant in the summer, okay? Like it's been nice to not always have something on. Anyway, be comfortable in your body. I also encourage not lying down right after a meal because of what I discussed before. When you get horizontal right after a meal, that makes it all the more easy for food or liquid to travel from your stomach back up and cause a lot of discomfort. So instead of laying down after a meal, which I know can be just so tempting because we're so tired. But if you can muster up the energy, going on a nice walk, light movement after a meal is actually really, really helpful for digestion and can help decrease the amount of reflux that you experience or mitigate symptoms altogether, which is nice. And then if things are just not improving, and if you haven't done this already, talk to your provider about any sort of antacid or a medication that may be able to help. A lot of women experience heartburn, specifically in pregnancy, and if you're doing all the things that I mentioned and you're still not seeing relief and you haven't talked to your provider about it, I definitely encourage doing so. So to recap, you can absolutely take back the reins on reflux, whether you're addressing the timing of your meals, the size, the content, how much water you're drinking, or what sort of beverages you're having. Those are all factors, key factors to helping you feel better and not only improve your symptoms, but also improve your sleep, because nighttime reflux is just a special kind of evil that we don't need to deal with during this already somewhat challenging but special and can be lovely time in our lives. We mamas have enough going on growing humans. We deserve a reflux free pregnancy. If you have any questions about anything that I mentioned or any tips that you've tried that I didn't mention, please go ahead and comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts, anything that you want to share. And stay tuned for more sleep tips, not only for pregnancy. A lot of them are geared towards pregnancy right now because that's the phase of life that I'm in, but I'll be doing postpartum sleep tips as well as just good old-fashioned sleep tips for anybody who wants to improve the quality and duration of their sleep. I hope you all learned a lot from this video. Sleep well and see you in the next one.